Alright, I want to apologize. I have issues with my other laptop that I usually make, that I record my videos with, and so the sound on this is a little challenging. I'm hoping I get a microphone or do something to correct this, so I want to apologize about that. So, first of all, I just want to say the quality of work that I'm seeing makes me very happy. You guys are all reading the Zen book, and you're leaving me very thought-provoking commentary. Some of you are really buying in, if you will, to the arguments that Howard Zen is making, and others are really making a challenge of that. Now, I wrote this to some of you who did that, but I just want to make clear, sometimes some of you will challenge the text, and I will kind of join in and counter a response to you. But I hope that you really feel, all of you as students, that even if I'm kind of lightly debating with you or challenging some of your ideas on there, that I'm just doing that to kind of stimulate this discussion further. Some of you may not realize that you're going to influence me on what you're saying, so I'm listening. It's a two-way street, and as you will have noticed, your grade's not affected in any way, based on whether or not you are agreeing with the Zen text or what I think about something. Okay, so I like to bring in counter views, and I think it's a much more interesting approach to history. And so we're going to keep getting more controversial, if you will, but also I think you will really appreciate the rich texture of the history of this country, how much more exciting and dramatic, and how this complexity, as it unfolds, really puts us in a different mindset than we thought about things before. Now we would all like to think that we would just be on the revolutionary side, but many colonists were loyal. I mean, think about the word loyalist. Loyalty is a good word, right? You're loyal to the state. Remember that the British felt like they were foreigners, but we were British subjects. Those were not foreign officers, they were ours. Okay? But colonial times, one of the big problems, and we're going to see this develop, is that they really did feel foreign. They acted foreign because the interests of the British government and the island oh so far away was more and more at odds with those who actually lived here. And but I think now, as we see so much societal turmoil taking place, I think it's fair that we ask ourselves why we're okay with being non-law abiding. In the past, when we perceived that law and authority were on the side of being not just, but now when people resist law and authority, they look like radical leftist, unappreciative, un-American people. Or is it just that we relate to certain types of protests or we don't? We had some men occupy, an area up in Oregon that many people related to. Then we have people protesting police many people don't relate to. So, are we United States? Well, we have a lot of different opinions and experiences that reflect different types of politics, right? And I just want us to really embrace the idea of thinking about how we would feel or act if we were in a different circumstance than we are now. It doesn't mean that we have to be wishy-washy and not have things that we stand for, but I think that it is an act of strength, courage, and moral integrity to do what historians are supposed to do in the current times, which is to always ask those kind of questions. What would it be like from the other side? And how does that change why people do the way that they do, or inform their behavior? Okay, so that's just something that I want to point out. I also want to say that in my lectures, I recorded these a while back. will re-listen to my lectures, and sometimes I need to try to correct certain ones, and at some point I need to just make a whole revised lecture. But they're a little bit out of date on some of the current political things. You'll see what I mean. And so just notice that I talked about Bernie Sanders as if he was still in the race, and he's not now. It's Hillary versus Trump, and I just kind of talked about some modern things. I wasn't really trying to push an agenda of one side or the other, but in any case, I did a voice lecture that is a little outdated on that particular topic. I just want to point that out. Now, the other thing is that I want to acknowledge is that it is the anniversary of 9/11, the terrorist attacks, and I was going to MJC at the time, and I remember I was going to math class, and it was a very surreal day, to say the least, very traumatizing. And I remember my math instructor, I think he was, I don't know, it was like a delayed reaction, like and class went on, but we were all in kind of shock, like we really weren't letting it set in, and I just remember him putting an equation on the board, and he just turned around and he said, "What's wrong with the world, right?" And then he just looked confused and went back, and we were, I think by the end of the day, like, everybody stopped going to class. It was like this thing where everybody was just not sure what you were supposed to even do. And then, of course, there were memorials and people coming out with flags or candles, however they wanted to address the terrible event. And, I just want to say that also, as a historian whose also specialty is in, the Middle East and Asia, that's where I actually studied more than even U.S. history. I would just like us to not just mourn our own loss, but to think about taking more time to study about what's going on in the world. I mean, currently right now, the U.S. is sending lots of weapons and diplomatic help to Saudi Arabia while they're demolishing the entire country of Yemen right now as we speak. Do we notice that? I mean, we're thinking about how much we're suffering right now. But is this making us more aware of maybe controversies of war, of how other people can react in parts of the world, or are we becoming more insular? Do we realize that there's been several million refugees from Iraq, several million from Syria, that we are also sending weapons all over the world, as in the U.S. government, and that some of these things we might agree with and maybe we wouldn't. But the bottom line is I feel like this is a day that should get us to really reflect on being hyper-conscious about the results of conflict. And we have a taste. As people in the United States, Canada under the British, we're going to cover the War of 1812, is the only time our own soil gets invaded by a standing army. Up to now. I mean, in World War I and World War II, we went overseas. We didn't have the constant carpet bombing the British had, or the Germany experienced even, and Russia. And so I feel like because we're the world's last superpower, and yet we've probably experienced war the least, it sometimes doesn't allow us to really take a bird's eye view and look at how the world is really going, and use this tragedy as an opportunity to have more incentive to feel about what it's like to be overseas, and ask ourselves questions about, what does our government do, and is it helpful? Is it a part of our moral values or not? And this is not a pacifist argument. This is not a left-wing argument. This is a human discussion, right? And I have certainly many students from the military, and I want to see them back home safely, right? And friends and family. And so, and I also want you to remember this. We don't have a memorial to April 18th, 1995, when Timothy McVeigh did the Oklahoma City bombing. And it even blew up a kids center at the federal building, killing many children. He was a white Gulf War vet. who was angry at the government. And why don't we look at that as a memorial? I think that we need to actually ask ourselves why we are selective about picking a particular one. Is it easier to does it feel worse when foreigners do it to us as opposed to what we do to ourselves? Why is that? That's a question that I think we should all ask. It's important. In any case, it is a solemn time, and I hope you all have a very enriching end to this week, to the Sunday, and always feel free to call or ask me any questions if need be about anything. So that's all I have to say. Have a blessed day, and we'll be in touch.